All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm going to tell you it's going to be a really good one. And then remember, check out my website here, subscribe to my channel. And my name's Dan Hendricks. And I'm telling you, this is a good video. This is one of the most important videos that I've made. This is one of the most important techniques or timing systems of astrology to understand. It's very basic. It's very simple. But of course, just like with all timing systems, you need to have some kind of experience and grasp of chart assessment, of being able to assess the planets. So, with all that being said, we're going to talk about the maturation ages of the planets. So let's go ahead and look at this graphic here. What we're going to see is there's a number next to each planet. Well, each of these numbers represents an age of our life. This is the same age for every single person, regardless of who you are, man, woman, whatever. Now, what I want to show here is that first thing we're going to talk about is these ages. This represents the 16th year of the individual, 21st year of the person's life, 24th year, etc., etc. And so when we say 16th year, what that means is it's between the 15th birthday and the 16th birthday, because that's what the 16th year is, between the 15th birthday and 16th birthday. Because our first year of life is between the second we're born till our first birthday. But even though we get to our first birthday, it's when we turn one, but it's the first year that's our first year. When we're actually 1 year old is actually our second year, between the first birthday and the second birthday. So anyhow, so always think about that with these maturation ages, is that there's going to be this year during the 16th year of somebody's life. That's when their Jupiter is going to mature. And then Sun, 21st year of someone's life, again between the 20th birthday and the 21st birthday. So, and then etc., etc., as we go through the other planets. So what does that mean, maturation age? Well, we know what maturity is, right? Maturity is, it's like we're growing up. And so maturity means, in the nature of the planets, it's like we go from using the planet's energy in a lesser way to using it in a higher way. Now, and then what's going to happen is there's going to be like this fulcrum during this year, this 16th or 21st, 24th, etc., during that specific year is going to be a series of events or a singular event or a common theme during that year that is going to get that person to use that planet at a higher energy or in a more effective and efficient way in their life. The thing is though, just because it's maturing doesn't mean that it's always a good event that happens, because we can learn, basically what it is, it's a life lesson. And it's either a life lesson that happens through wonderful circumstances, or a life-changing event, or a mindset, a higher usage of that energy is going to give us a better mindset that comes from a more difficult period of our life, a more stressful circumstances. So if you've got a Jupiter that is very afflicted, then before you use Jupiter, you were using it, in whatever manner it was, and probably with more trouble and stress. But then between the age of 15 and 16, what's going to happen is you're going to go through this period where it's going to be the most trouble you've ever experienced in your life. Up to that point, you don't really have much experience at that point in life. But you're going to come out of it with a better, with a better usage of Jupiter. And what does Jupiter represent? Well, we can look at all the karakas of Jupiter. Jupiter represents our purpose in life. Jupiter represents wealth. Jupiter has a say in career. So all of these things are going to be going on. But also, very importantly, you want to look at the houses that Jupiter rules. And even you can look at the placement of Jupiter in a house. And that might have a say in the maturity. And even more important, you're going to want to look at Jupiter in the Vargas. So you're going to want to look at the Vargas where Jupiter is responsible, or where Jupiter is the important Karaka for that Bhava, or that Varga. In the Saptamsha, Jupiter is a very important planet, and in the Vimsamsha, Jupiter is a very important planet. And then there's other ones too. The Dasamsha, Jupiter is important. And you can just look through the Vargas. And if you're looking through all 16 Vargas and you have an idea of how Jupiter's doing in a very holistic perspective, then you're going to know, okay, this is a point where this person's going to go through this wonderful event or this more stressful circumstance that's going to help them use Jupiter at a higher level. I'll give you an example from my chart. Venus in my chart rules the second house. Well, Venus in my chart is afflicted. So second house is about resources and finances. Well, when I was 25, actually, after my Venus matured, when I was actually in my 26th year, I filed bankruptcy. But I filed bankruptcy because of the events that happened in my 24th to 25th year. Just an incredibly poor way of managing resources, basically. And because of this event, though, I learned so much from that event. I learned so much that, like, my credit score now is higher than it's ever been. My credit score back then, when I was 24th to my 25th year, was the lowest it's ever been. It was terrible. My ability to manage my resources is different, but it came through a difficult set of circumstances. And so that's what we can see with these maturation ages. We can see that these are the ages where the person's going to be able to use the planet at a higher level. And then one thing that you can see through these maturation ages is the last maturation that happens is K2 in our 48th year between our 47th birthday and our 48th birthday. So what this shows is why someone who's in their 50s we consider to be someone who is wise, right? We consider these to be people that we're going to ask for advice from. Like, we respect people more that are in their 50s because we know that they're more stable because they've been through a lot more experiences in life than maybe we have, especially if we're in our 20s, you know. So that's why, because we just naturally know as human beings that, like, wow, I'm 50 years old. I can sit back and and relax. Nothing really is crazy is going to happen. You're going to be the person you are at 50. That's basically what's going to happen. You might change a little bit, but where you're going to change the most is going to be before 50. And where do we experience the most change in our lives? This is a general blanket statement, is in our 20s. And if you look at this, of the 9 planets within this 8-year period between our 20th birthday and our 28th birthday, we have 4 planets mature. That's a lot of stuff going on. And you could even say between Sun and Saturn. You can see that between our 20th birthday and our 36th birthday in the 16-year spread, we have 6 planets mature. So this is really the time in our life where we grow the most, where we change our path, where we have a whole different perspective. Maybe the person that we started at age 20, you know, we came into our 20s like, all right, I know where I'm going. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, because this is what I think is the greatest, you know. Then you go through a couple of these maturities, you know, maybe you hit age 28 and you're like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Wow, I can't even believe that. That was so immature, or that was such short-sighted, you know. And so that's where um that's what these maturity ages are all about. It's like, wow, now I really know how to use Mars. Before, like, I was just active for no reason. For example, I have a client, um and I was talking to him specifically, and he was older, so it's always fun to revisit these when you're talking to an older, you know, someone that's in their 50s, and this gentleman was in his 50s. And I talked about this, like, yeah, Matt, we talked, and it was about, ended up being about how his Mars maturity, this person before that would get into fights, you know, and was all this like macho guy who'd fight for basically no reason, always looking for a fight. And then at age, during this period, you know, when he was 27 years old, that's when he got into this big fight with this person that he shouldn't have. It was like a family member, and he felt bad because of it. And this is all reflected in his chart too. And then after that, he doesn't get in fights anymore. He will not, it's not to say he won't stand up for himself, right? But it's that when it comes to physical violence, only if he's pushed. You know, only if he's pushed and there's no other way out, he's going to use it as a last resort. And that is the definition of the maturation, the maturity of Mars. Maturity of Mars is about only fighting when you have to. And so it's really interesting. You'll talk to people, you'll look at your chart, you'll look at your family's chart, your friend's chart, and you'll see that there's just incredible events that happen at this time. But all these events that are happening are what I call this age right here, these four right here, I call this the fire, because you're in the forge. You're being forged into a better person, because when you come out of this, you're going to have 5 planets matured. You're going to have 4 more to go, but you're going to have 5 planets matured. You're going to have a different perspective in life. In fact, with professional athletes, I know in like the sport of baseball, I believe it is, they say that an athlete hits his prime when he hits 27, 28 years old, which is goes right in line with this idea. It's like that athlete before 27 years old is probably just, you know, training and doing whatever he needs to do, but in a little bit more impulsive manner. And then by age 28, he's like, you know what? I only need to do these things that are important. And if I focus on this aspect of it, you know, and that's where everything starts falling into place. That's how you can look at all these maturation ages. And then what you can use with these maturation ages is, I look at these, this is the first thing I look at when I get a client. You know, if I got a client that's, you know, 25 years old, or more so 24 years old, that's asking for a reading, what's the first thing I'm going to look at? Once I know their age, I'm like, boom, I'm going to look at their moon, and I'm going to look at their Venus, and I'm going to see how they're doing. Same thing if the person's 27, 31, 35, 41, 47, 15, 20. That's what I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be looking at that because it's so helpful. And then you can also know, now you'll see Rahu and Ketu are the last to mature, because Rahu and Ketu represent that important, like, life lesson that we're here to learn, that important balancing, sort of, it's like a karmic balance that we're trying to find, like a huge karmic issue that we're trying to resolve in our lifetime. And so I love talking about Rahu and Ketu with clients. It's one of my favorite things to look at in a chart. Every chart I get, I'm always excited to look at Rahu and Ketu. Now, if you're talking to somebody that's in their 20s that doesn't even have all their planets matured yet, you know, you're going to want to talk to them about Rahu and Ketu. You're going to want to talk to them from a counseling perspective, because it's going to be an issue that they just don't quite understand how to use yet, and it's still going to be quite dark to them. Now, if you're talking to somebody that's beyond it, Ketu's maturation age, that's in their 50s, you're going to want to talk to them not necessarily from a counseling perspective. It might end up being that way. Every chart's different. But for the most part, in a very general statement, if you're talking to somebody that is in their 50s or 60s or 70s, you'll want to talk about Rahu and Ketu as more as in like, yeah, I'm sure you've experienced this balance of learning to do this. And they'll be like, yeah, I went through some crazy times. I used to think I was supposed to do everything. And maybe that's what K2 in their chart was. K2 was like, yeah, you used to do everything. Now you have to take other people's help. And you talk to somebody in their 20s, you'll want to say, hey, what you need to do is learn to accept help. I know it's new to you. I know you're really good and you're really powerful and you can handle things on your own, but you really need to start. Your life's going to be so much easier if you just start letting other people help you. Now, if you're someone's in their 50s, you'll want to maybe approach that from a perspective of, yeah, I bet you've probably learned by now, right? That, you've probably learned to let people help you and not try and do it all. They're like, oh my gosh, took me 50 years to figure that out or something. It's really fun. I recommend, always looking at these maturation ages when you have your clients come in because, it's so vital. And then look at the planets when if they're coming to you and they're going through these maturity ages, or they're coming up on these maturation ages, or they just came through these maturation ages, then you can always talk to them about that and let them know that, that incredible event that happened, if the person's got an afflicted planet, that crazy situation, you probably just went through some stressful situation regarding this or this, based on what that planet rules in the chart. And the person's going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it's going to be for the better. That was an important lesson for you to learn at that time. And how do you decide what are the methods of analysis for determining whether it's a good consequence or a difficult consequence? Well, that is going to be based upon Lajatati Avashtas, Shadbala, planetary dignity, conjunction of cruel or gentle planets, whatever your methods of chart and planet analysis and assessment is about. That's what you're going to use. And then you're going to want to always look into the Vargas. You always want to look in the Rashi chart, but look in the Vargas. And again, use all those same things that you know about how to assess planets. And that's how we can use this information. And then if the person happens to be in Moon Dasha while going through Moon maturity, you're going to know that this is going to be a more important time. So you can look at your other timing factors, your natural ages of the planets, your Vimshottari Dasha, all your other dashas. And if they're all lining up, then this is just going to be an even more prominent event in this person's life. So anyhow, that's how we can use these maturation ages. I really highly recommend you always keep these in the front of your mind and always think about this whenever you get a new chart. Where is this person at? Oh, okay, here's where they're at. These planets have matured. They've got these maturations coming up. Absolutely. They're in this time period. How much more significant is it? And anyhow, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you have a great time exploring the maturation ages of the planets. And thank you for watching, and namaste.